question number 105/2022, under my name to the Minister, Prime Minister, and Minister for Itoki Affairs, Sugar Industry, Foreign Affairs and Forestry. Can the Prime Minister update Parliament on the Minister's plan to revitalize the sugar industry? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I now call on the Prime Minister and Minister for Itoki Affairs, Sugar Industry, Foreign Affairs and Forestry, the Honourable Josiah Bainimarama. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to respond to the question by Honourable Inoshi Kurundanya. Mr. Speaker, it's an election year, so I suppose it's no surprise that the opposition has once again started kicking the cane industry like a political football. It's a pity that Honourable Biman Prasad, is not here, Mr. Speaker, because I heard him made a comment this morning to say that there are dictators on this side of the House. I want him to know that there are no dictators on this side of the House. What we have on this side of the House is strong, decisive leadership. Just because he's married to Papi, it doesn't mean that he can stand on the table and beat his chest. But as always, Mr. Speaker, I should straight with the cane growers about the state of the industry. No lies, no false promises, just the facts as they are. And the fact is, Mr. Speaker, we have continued to provide higher levels of support to cane growers than at any point in Fijian history. Fertilizer and weed-side subsidies, cane top-up payments, cane cartridge transportation payments, cost for Penang Mill area growers, assistance with the renewal of leases through top-up payments to landowners, upgrading of cane access roads, covering 1/3 of the cost of purchases for the mechanization of cane harvesting, the purchase of cane lorries, and incentives for new growers to enter the industry and for growers to boost cane production. And Mr. Speaker, we have challenges, as you all know. When the going has been tough for cane growers, their government has extended our firm hand to support. Due to climate change, as we heard, Mr. Speaker, floods are more intense, droughts are longer, and storms have been stronger and more frequent than ever. Tropical cyclones Sarai, tropical cyclone Evan, Winston and Harold and Anna and Yasa were all brutal blows. Winston and Yasa all alone caused massive damage to the cane production, cutting production to 1.4 million tons in 2016 and 2021. Not only cane was affected, but the cane access roads and milling infrastructure was severely damaged. Intense rainfall caused waterlogging, reduced soil fertility, and ultimately reduced cane productivity. These challenges, Mr. Speaker, as everyone knows, are beyond our immediate control. Post-pandemic, the price of fertilizer almost doubled. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has since exacerbated the situation. International sanctions on Belarus, which is a supplier of GMOP fertilizers and muriate of potash, and the fertilizer export restriction imposed by China, the largest exporter of DAP fertilizer, have both substantially increased spot prices. The South Pacific Fertilizers Limited is procuring fertilizer materials from alternative markets at a cost that is increased by 2 to 3-fold. And then there's COVID-19, Mr. Speaker. All the challenges that we have comes in combination with the economic shock caused by COVID-19. There were lockdowns, port closures, and inconsistent shipping schedules that affected the sugar and molasses sales, all of which affected the Sugar Corporation's cash flow. Global lockdowns, Mr. Speaker, delayed the arrival of parts of equipment, which compromised timely mill maintenance. I should mention that despite the COVID-19 challenges and failed boycott instigated by the National Farmers Union last year, the mill operated well with fewer breakdowns and stoppages. We shielded growers from global prices hikes by absorbing the entire increase in fertilizer costs with an additional grant allocation of $9.72 million, Mr. Speaker, in the revised 2021-22 budget, on top of the initial allocation of $15.6 million. The total allocation is $25.3 million. From 1st April 2022, the price of fertilizer has gone up in excess of $80 per bag. Yet, my government has continued to subsidize the entire difference of that increase so that growers still pay the same price of $20 per bag. And we made an additional allocation in the most recent revised budget to cater for that increase. Mr. Speaker, my government is the only one in history to introduce the guaranteed sugar price of $85 per ton, irrespective of the world market price. This has given security and certainty to farmers by supporting their bottom line. Mr. Speaker, my government is also working with our counterparts to ensure that the export of sugar to foreign destinations attracts low or zero-rated duties to give Fiji a competitive advantage over other sugar exporting countries. Mr. Speaker, the recent price review of sugar in the domestic market conducted by the Fijian Competition and Consumer Commission will further consolidate the pricing for farmers and ensure FSC acquires the right price for its product and generates revenue to perform targeted investments to increase crop yield, improve milling efficiencies, and product diversification. Mr. Speaker, the industry institutions are closely collaborating to boost cane productivity. The FSC and the Sugar Research Institute of Fiji, SRIF, has acquired highly qualified personnel from India to do research and address the soil health issues in our sugarcane farms. SRIF, through its new CEO, has consolidated efforts in reviewing the sugarcane varieties prevalent locally with an intent to plant only those varieties that are best suited to Fiji's climatic conditions and those that promise the most optimum sugar contents. Mr. Speaker, FSC has also recruited new experts to drive its strategic objectives on cane development. Strong emphasis is being placed on the improvement of soil health through initiatives such as fertilizer uptake, application of eggland, and intercropping, to name a few. The focus is always shifted towards more structured and methodological harvesting and transportation systems for the 2022 season, something that will ensure a strong supply of good cane to the mill, thereby improving milling efficiencies. Mr. Speaker, in many ways, the sugar industry is like any other business. To sustain the business, we need to, 1, achieve a break-even volume of crop, 2, manufacture the required volume of sugar, and 3, set the right price levels to be viable in the business. The sugar industry is expected to achieve its targets of 2 million tons of cane this year. And with the current sugar price in the domestic and export markets, sugar revenue will increase. The climate impacts I've discussed, taken in combination with global trade disruptions, have presented the FSC with huge challenges. Notwithstanding risk, Mr. Speaker, FSC has been provided with a government guarantee as it navigates through this interim period. This financial support, Mr. Speaker, will continue as FSC remains on its path towards financial stability on the back of strong marketing initiatives, enhanced milling efficiencies, and improved cane production. Mr. Speaker, I want to stress that Fiji is not alone in the way we support and subsidize the sugar industry. India, being one of the largest sugar-producing countries, subsidizes its industry significantly. My government does the same for the same reason, to continue to support our sugar industry so that our growers can trust in a viable and sustainable future. Mr. Speaker, as highlighted in some of my previous responses in Parliament, FSC will continue to carry out product development and diversification and grow the market for its sugar of Fiji product. It will also work on improving the packaging machines and distribution channels and acquire international certifications that would open doors to new markets. There is the potential for FSC to generate good revenue through bulk sugar and molasses exports. This will help lift some of the financial burden of government as a percentage contribution towards the guaranteed price of $85 per ton. Mr. Speaker, it's not only the world that is changing when it comes to cane growing. New dynamics in the Fijian economy and workforce are affecting the industry as well. Fiji, Mr. Speaker, as we all know, is not the same country that it was in the 1960s and 70s. We are a more modern and diversified economy, and the interests of the young generation reflect that. Traditionally, cane growing has been hereditary, with farms being passed down from generation to generation. However, young Fijians increasingly want to diversify by growing other crops or even taking up other professions entirely. The average age of cane farmers is 59, in a population where a large majority of our people are under the age of 40. This is an issue we must confront squarely. I've mentioned the assistance we are providing to mechanize the industry, but not all terrain can be harvested by machines. Some requires manual labor. And to fill the labor shortage, Mr. Speaker, we are also working with the Fiji Correction Service to supply labor to the industry. In addition, as we have highlighted, 43% of all cane growers are small growers, cutting less than 100 tons of cane per year. These growers are far from fully reliant on cane growing and often grow other crops to subsidize their incomes. Mr. Speaker, that is why we created the option for smaller scale growers to grow non-sugarcane crops for domestic purpose to support Fiji's food security and for export purposes. We need more locally grown crops available for our people. They are healthier and more resilient to the global price shocks we've been experiencing. As announced in the revised budget of 2021-2022, Mr. Speaker, the government has allocated $500,000 to support cane growers who seek to convert their sugarcane leases to agricultural leases to plant other crops or for residential purposes. We will, of course, work with landowners, Mr. Speaker, TLTB and interested farmers to help them obtain new leases. We expect, Mr. Speaker, that primarily small-scale growers will wish to diversify into non-sugar crops as they may find it more feasible and profitable to do so. At the very least, they deserve that option. Meanwhile, the government will continue to boost cane production and ensure that our target of 2 million is achieved by this year. With the mills to begin crushing early next month, Mr. Speaker, with the mills to begin crushing early next month, I wish a fruitful year to the growers, the millers, lorry drivers, cane cutters, harvester operators, and all stakeholders involved with the industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Honourable Prime Minister. Honourable University Kurindrani, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Supplementary question. Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is that the sugar industry is struggling to survive due to low production and high cost of production. The cane cuttage alone consists about 40% of cost production.
What is your supplement?
With the recent fuel increase, Mr. Speaker, sir, with the recent fuel increase, is there any plan by this government for distant farmers to establish this transloading zone so that it helps them to survive. Thank you, sir. Transloading.
You sit down.
Is there any plans to establish transloading?
You've asked the question,
Okay.
so you sit down. So I can give the floor to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, his comment in the papers was that I was betrayed. But I will stay with Sudelpo now because of the masari I can get as Member of Parliament. He's a very confused individual, Mr. Speaker. Somebody once said his predicament is like that of his party and his leadership. They're neither at home or at the jetty. All of them wear massive smile and carry a pocket knife ready to stab. I've already covered everything. Mr. Speaker, but with regard to the price of fuel, there is an independent body, namely the FCCC, that conducts price reviews. There is a process for FCCC to follow when considering price review for any regulated price, and all stakeholders are required to follow the procedure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We'll move on to the second oral question.